Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Today, we're tackling something I think we can all relate to. Inflammation. We're going to dig into what inflammation really is, why it seems like everyone's talking about it these days, and some fascinating insights on how to tackle it, especially from that Spanish language podcast episode on inflammation. Remember that one?
Oh, definitely. That was a great listen, and it had some really interesting takeaways.
Totally. So to kick things off, can we start with the basics? What exactly is inflammation, and why should we care about it?
Well, most people think of inflammation as a bad thing, right? But it's actually your body's natural defense mechanism. It's like sending out an SOS signal when something's up.
Okay, so it's like our body's way of saying, hey, pay attention, something's not right here.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You know when you accidentally stub your toe and it gets all red and swollen?
Ugh, don't remind me. The worst.
That's inflammation in action. Your body sends a surge of blood and immune cells to the area to protect it and help it heal. It's like calling for backup.
Okay, that makes sense. So it sounds like inflammation is actually a good thing in those acute situations.
Absolutely. It's part of your body's natural healing process. The trouble starts when that inflammatory response gets stuck in the on position.
Ah, so that's where we get into chronic inflammation, which is what everyone seems to be talking about these days.
You got it. Chronic inflammation is like having that check engine light on in your body, but instead of a quick fix, it just keeps blinking and draining your battery.
And those warning signs can show up in some pretty surprising ways, right? It's not just about feeling a little puffy after a meal.
Right. We're talking about things like brain fog, fatigue, skin issues, mood swings, even stubborn weight gain. These can all be signs that something's out of whack.
It's like our bodies are trying to tell us something. So let's talk about what's fueling this chronic inflammation. I have a feeling my love for all things sugar and carbs might be playing a role here.
You might be onto something. Our modern lifestyles, especially our diets, are a major contributor to chronic inflammation. Think processed foods, refined sugars, those are the big culprits.
It's like we're constantly bombarding our bodies with things they don't know how to handle.
Exactly. Imagine your digestive system is like a finely tuned machine. Now imagine throwing a wrench in there every time you eat something highly processed or full of sugar. It throws everything off balance.
And it's not just what we're eating, right?
Right.
That podcast we mentioned earlier also talked about how environmental toxins and stress play a role too.
It's all connected. Think about it. We're exposed to toxins in our air, our water, even our skincare products. And then there's the constant stress of our go lives. It all adds up, you know?
Okay, so we've covered some of the things that are fanning the flames of inflammation. But now for the million-dollar question. What can we do about it? Where do we even begin to calm this fire within?
Well, the good news is that we have a lot more control than we think.
Music to my ears. So where do we start?
Food is a powerful tool. By making some simple swaps and focusing on whole, nutrient-dense foods, we can start to fight back against inflammation.
Give us the goods. What are some of those inflammation-fighting superstars we should be loading up on? Okay, give us the rundown. What should we be piling onto our plates?
Well, first things first, let's talk about healthy fats.
Hold on, healthy fats? I thought we were trying to fight inflammation, not add fuel to the fire.
Right, I know it sounds counterintuitive. We've been told for so long that fat is the enemy. But the truth is, our bodies need healthy fats to thrive. They're essential for so many functions, from hormone balance to brain health. Plus, they can actually help us feel more satisfied and reduce cravings, which can be a game changer when you're trying to make healthier choices.
Okay, so not all fats are created equal. Got it. What are some examples of these inflammation-fighting fats we should be friends with?
Think about things like fatty fish salmon, mackerel, sardines. Those are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, which are like the rock stars of the anti-inflammatory world.
Omega-3s. I've definitely heard good things about those.
And for good reason. They're incredibly powerful for reducing inflammation throughout the body. Plus, they're great for your heart, your brain, your skin, everything.
Okay, I'm sold on the omega-3s. What else you got?
Olive oil is another good one. Drizzle it on salads, use it for cooking, avocados, nuts, seeds. Basically, we want to be incorporating these good fats into our diets on a regular basis.
This is making me rethink my snack drawer choices. Instead of reaching for the chips, I should be grabbing a handful of almonds or something.
Exactly. It's all about making those simple swaps that can make a big difference in the long run.
So we've covered the good fats. What about other nutrients? That podcast episode you sent also mentioned the importance of protein. How does that fit into the inflammation picture?
Protein is crucial. It's one of the building blocks of our cells, and it plays a key role in repairing tissues, boosting our immune systems, and keeping us feeling full and satisfied.
Okay, so we need protein for a whole bunch of reasons. But it can be tough to make sure you're getting enough, especially when you're juggling a million things.
Hmm.
Who has time to cook elaborate, protein-packed meals every single day?
You're telling me. But the good news is, it doesn't have to be complicated. Even small changes can make a big difference, like adding some nuts and seeds to your breakfast yogurt.
Or throwing some beans into a salad or soup?
Exactly. It's all about those little tweaks that add up over time.
Okay, this is all making sense so far. But I have to ask about something that always seems to be a hot topic. Dairy and gluten. They get a bad rap when it comes to inflammation. What's the deal with those?
Ah, the age-old debate. Here's the thing. Dairy and gluten aren't inherently bad or inflammatory for everyone.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just labeling them as off-limits for everyone.
Right. For some people, they might not cause any issues at all, but for others, they can definitely trigger an inflammatory response. It really depends on the person and their individual sensitivities.
So how do you know if dairy or gluten is a problem for you personally?
Well, paying attention to how your body feels after you eat certain foods is key. That's where that whole food journal thing can be helpful. Keep track of what you're eating and how you're feeling and see if you notice any patterns.
It's like if you eat a big bowl of pasta and then feel bloated and sluggish afterward.
Exactly. Or if you have a latte and your skin breaks out, those could be signs that your body's not loving those foods.
Okay, so it's about being mindful and tuning in to those subtle signals.
Exactly. And if you suspect that dairy or gluten might be an issue for you, you could always try eliminating them for a period of time and see how you feel.
Like a little experiment.
Exactly. And then slowly reintroduce them one at a time and pay close attention to how your body responds.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about some of the things that can trigger inflammation, and we've covered some of those dietary heroes that can help us fight back. But how do we know if we're actually dealing with chronic inflammation? Are there any telltale signs beyond just feeling a little off?
Well, inflammation can be sneaky, right? It can show up in so many different ways. Some people might experience digestive issues like bloating, gas, constipation, that sort of thing.
Right, those are the classic signs that something's up in the gut.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But inflammation can also manifest in less obvious ways like fatigue, brain fog, skin problems, even mood swings.
It's like our bodies are trying to send us a message, but we're not always sure how to interpret it.
That's a great way to put it. It's like your body's sending out these little smoke signals, and it's up to us to pay attention and figure out what they mean.
So what do we do if we're experiencing some of those symptoms and we're thinking, okay, maybe chronic inflammation is at play here. What are our next steps?
Well, the first step is always to talk to your doctor or a qualified healthcare practitioner.
Always good advice.
They can help you determine if your symptoms are actually related to inflammation or something else entirely. And they can order some tests to check for certain markers of inflammation in the body.
Like what kind of tests?
Well, one common one is called a C-reactive protein test, or CRP. It measures the levels of C-reactive protein in your blood, which is a sign of inflammation.
So the higher your CRP levels, the more inflammation you have going on.
Exactly. There are other markers they can look at too, depending on your individual situation. But the CRP test is a good starting point.
Okay, so talk to your doctor, get tested if needed. What else can we do to get to the bottom of this inflammation puzzle?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Remember how we were talking about how everything in the body is connected?
Oh, absolutely. It's like
Yeah.
our bodies are these incredible, intricate webs.
Exactly. And one of the most fascinating connections is the one between our gut and our brains.
The gut-brain connection. I've heard that's a pretty big deal these days. What's the connection to inflammation? Really is
How?
amazing when you think about it, right? Our gut and our brain constantly chatting it up.
Yeah, it's like they have this direct line of communication going on. And the crazy thing is, when there's inflammation in the gut, it can actually send signals up to the brain.
So those late-night pizza regrets aren't just in our heads. It's like our gut is sending a memo straight to the brain saying, what were you thinking?
Pretty much. And those signals can affect everything from our mood to our sleep to our cognitive function. It's wild.
This gut-brain connection is blowing my mind. We've covered so much ground today about what inflammation is, what causes it, and some things we can do to calm the fire within. But before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to that bigger picture. If chronic inflammation is so prevalent in our modern world, what does it really mean for how we think about health in the long term?
That's the question, isn't it? For so long, we've been focused on treating symptoms as they pop up instead of looking at the bigger picture, at what might be causing those symptoms in the first
It's
place.
like putting Band-Aids on a leaky faucet.
Yeah.
We're addressing the immediate issue, but we're not fixing the root cause.
Exactly. And often that root cause is chronic inflammation simmering beneath the surface. So it's about shifting our mindset from just treating the symptoms to really understanding what's driving those symptoms. And that's where those lifestyle changes we were talking about come in: the food we eat, how we manage stress, the quality of our sleep, even our exposure to sunlight.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah.
All these different factors play a role in that bigger picture of health.
I love that analogy. It's not just about one thing, it's about all of those pieces fitting together to create a whole picture of well-being.
So instead of just reaching for a pill every time something feels off, we should be asking ourselves, what's going on here? Is there something deeper going on? Could inflammation be the culprit?
Exactly. It's about being proactive and tuning in to those whispers from our bodies instead of just ignoring them.
Because those whispers might be trying to tell us something really important. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this whole inflammation puzzle, but in a good way. Like I'm inspired to learn more and to really start paying attention to those whispers from my own body.
That's what it's all about. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep listening to your body. It's the most incredible instrument you'll ever own.
Couldn't said it better myself. To our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of inflammation. We hope you learned a ton and feel empowered to take charge of your health.
And remember, it's a journey, not a race.
You got it. Until next time, keep those brains sparking and those bodies thriving.